The story begins on a busy train in South Korea. A man named Kim Dokja, who is often misunderstood as the only child, is a normal trying to sustain his life by working. On his way home, Dokja took the train and read his favorite novel, 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, or TWSA in short, consisting of 3,149 episodes. Sangga Yoo, from HR, a workmate of Dokja. She noticed Dokja all alone and accompanied him. Dokja was confused as to why she was commuting on the train when she was so popular, and men would fall in line to give her a ride. The train ride seems normal for others except for him, because that day is the day the epilogue will be uploaded. During the ride, Sangga studied Spanish while Dokja read a novel that interested Sangga. Dokja left a comment for the author. He wanted to give the author a donation, but he is struggling to live, and that comment is all he can give to appreciate the author's work. A few moments later, the author of TWSA replied to Dokja's comments and asked for Dokja's email address to thank Dokja. The author informed Dokja that the novel would become a paid novel by 7 p.m., which is 5 minutes later. 5 minutes passed, and the train they were riding crashed, and a creature with 2 horns and white fur, small but mighty, appeared at the cabin's door. Dokja can't believe he sees the creature from the book of TWSA called Dokebi. People inside the train started panicking and were asked to move the train because they had places to be. No one knew what was happening, and some people consider it as if they were shooting a movie. Knowing what Dokebi would do next, Dokja asked Sangga to not move. The Dokebi proved itself real by blowing the heads of the noisy people who complained. With that, as much as Dokja doesn't want to admit it, all the happenings are real. Somebody bravely stepped in front, which Dokja and Sangga knew from Mr. Han's finance team. Dokebi burned the offered check. It cannot be bribed, the Dokebi. Instead of taking the money, Dokebi lets the people earn their money with a game. A holographic screen appeared at each person with an instruction, category, difficulty level, time limit, reward, and penalty when you fail. The Dokebi then disappeared. The first scenario they need to do is to eliminate a living form. Sangga tried calling the police, but they wouldn't pick up. Dokja told Sangga they were in an apocalypse and needed to survive using the game. All they need to do is figure out the rules first. Dokja felt hopeless and wanted to read the story again, to know what would happen and how to survive. But the novel was removed from the website. An Army Lieutenant Hyun-sung Lee was inside the cabin and took charge of the panicking people inside. The lieutenant informed the people that they were facing a level 1 national emergency alert. Upon seeing his face, Dokja was surprised, not because he saw the character, but because that character wasn't supposed to be introduced in that part of the original story. Everyone in the cabin was watching the news and announcements from their prime minister explaining the happening around South Korea and every part of the world. People were still doubting and thought it was just a rumor, until the Dokebi shot the prime minister live on TV and threatened the people who thought it was still a joke. Because of that, the Dokebi decreased the time limit from 30 to 10 minutes. People are panicking again and expecting Hyun-sung to do something. While their cabin, 3807, is panicking, people from the other cabins start eliminating each other. The Dokebi showed the people in the cabin the same situation, but in Taepyeong Girls High School. They exceeded the time limit and proceeded to check out. Their heads started to blow, terminating them instantly, but at the last minute, a girl named Ji-hye Lee eliminated her classmate and survived. On the other hand, Dokja was waiting for someone to appear and scrolled into his phone to read the novel, but it was still inaccessible, until he remembered the attachment the author gifted him, which turns out to be the novel itself. Dokja was surprised that the author could give it to him with ease. Dokja then remembered that each TWSA survivor had a special attribute, and he tried to open his, but it was closed. Since he didn't know what to do, he opened the attachment first to read it. That's where the access was triggered, and he earned his special attribute. Dokja's special attribute was fast reading, which helped him read the opening chapter of TWSA in less than a minute. Dokja then realized he felt so uneasy because the main character of TWSA was behind theirs. So Dokja read the story again and discovered that only 2 people would survive in their cabin. One person in the cabin had already started hitting an elderly woman to shut up. Namwoon Kim was the earliest person to accept the world of TWSA. Namwoon encouraged others to help him kill the elderly woman if they didn't want to die. Dokja felt like a reader again, just spectating others and terminating others without doing anything just so he could live. But Sangha thought otherwise and wanted to help the elderly woman. But Dokja stopped him because it was too dangerous. Dokja pushed her to sit and asked her to trust him with his plan. Dokja predicted an explosion and launched himself at Namwoon. Dokja saw the kid with a grasshopper and took it. Dokja then gathered the attention and explained that the rule meant eliminating a living organism, not humans. Dokja killed the grasshopper in front of them, and people came after the box of grasshoppers, but Dokja threw the cage and let people go to rampage to find them. Dokja gained 100 coins for it. Namwoon saw what Dokja did and thought that Dokja was a psycho himself. As Namwoon was talking to Dokja, a character profile showed up. Namwoon Kim is an edgelord attributed to grimdark awakening, knife fighting, and exceptional adaptability. Namwoon wanted to gain forces with Dokja, but Dokja was hesitant. With barely 3 minutes left, Namwoon proceeded to approach the elderly woman he beat up and eliminate her so he could survive. But Dokja stopped him because, in the novel, Dokja hated Namwoon's character. Namwoon activated his grimdark awakening and fought Dokja with stronger strength, but Dokja also activated his other attribute, the Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. It lets you read your opponent's moves. Namwoon was getting annoyed with Dokja always dodging his attack. Knowing that Namwoon tries to hurt the elderly woman again, he protects her and takes her away from Namwoon. For Dokja, the world is still the same. Strong people will prey on the weak. But instead, the instructions are getting clearer. Dokja secured the elderly woman and found grasshopper eggs. Dokja gained a huge number of coins from terminating them, which he invested in stamina level. Namwoon couldn't stab Dokja as if he were as hard as a rock. With 1 minute left, the two kept fighting while Dokja was just looking at him with a straight face. Time passed, and people who didn't kill an organism were eliminated. Namwoon was begging Dokja to save him, but Dokja seemed calm even after things were chaotic. The total survivors of Cabin 3807 are 5. Dokja Kim, Sangha Yoo, Myunggo Han from the finance team, Hyunsung, the lieutenant, and Gilyong Lee, the boy who owns. The grasshoppers. As the train finally moved, they saw the situation outside, full of fire and creatures. The ichthyosaur, a snake-like monster. The train stopped directly in front of the creature, and they, especially Myunggo Han, were scared that they might be in danger. But Dokja remained calm because he knew they were safe, for now. Dokebi was looking at the number of viewers he had. With a total of 21 constellations, Dokaibi was dying of happiness. Constellations are mysterious beings and deities in TWSA. They are also the masterminds who live-stream the scenarios from across the universe. They are like the readers who can directly sponsor the survivors with abilities and coins. Due to Dokja terminating Namwoon, 2 constellations feel hostility, but some constellations support Dokja. Sangha checked up on Dokja and thanked Dokja for throwing a cage toward her. Although Dokja didn't purposely do it, he doesn't want to feel like he deserved gratitude to whoever survived after some died. Dokebi congratulated the survivors and bragged about the number of constellations watching. Dokja checks up on the kid and teams up with him so he can survive. With this gesture, Dokja impressed a few constellations and gifted him 200 coins. He is only doing this so the constellation can sponsor him. Myunggo Han yelled at the Dokaibi to stop this. Nonsense, but for Dokaibi, it was only getting started. Dokaibi showed how exciting it was to be sponsored by a constellation, but they were all confused. So Dokaibi educated them about the constellations and what they could do. After that, Dokaibi gave them time to choose the constellations that sponsored them. Dokja had 4 constellations, but he had to pick one, so he narrowed it down with the knowledge he got from TWSA. Constellations hid their true name with nicknames. From there, you must figure out who your sponsors are. The Abyssal Black Flame Dragon is a powerful constellation that sponsors their incarnation to boost its level, but over time will become a senseless, psychotic killer. Next is the Demon Judge of Fire. It may sound demonic, but it is the opposite. This constellation is the Archangel Uriel. She gifts her constellation with good powers but restricts their incarnations. The third one is the secretive plotter. Although Dokja is an avid reader, he hasn't heard anything about the constellation. The last one is the most powerful constellation there is. It is the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, the Monkey King with the golden gaze and fury eyes. Due to the author emphasizing it so strongly, Dokja shows interest in picking the Monkey King to beat the real main character. Dokebi told them to stay put at the cabin as it prepared for the next scenario in 10 minutes. Dokja gathered everyone and introduced himself properly to Hyunsung with the motive of recruiting him. Myungo also introduced himself to Dokja, but he greeted him casually, which offended Myungo. Dokja told them that this world was their new reality and suggested getting out of the cabin so they could avoid meeting the real protagonist. The others disagree because they're wary of the creatures outside until they hear the slamming from the other cabin. They saw a small opening, and with Hyunsung's special ability, they could escape. They ran outside when Dokebi saw them running too early, so without a choice, Dokebi started the second scenario, getting off the bridge before it collapsed. As they were all running, they saw a swirl in the water, and an ichthyosaur appeared, not to attack them, but to damage and collapse the bridge. Only Hyunsung and Gilyong made it to the other side safely. Not only the ichthyosaur, but Dokebi made it. Fun to use the black ether that possessed the dead bodies of people to make a mass of zombies. In an unexpected turn of events, a constellation directly helped Sangha, a rare occurrence in TWSA, and made a bridge, but it can only be passed through even numbers. While Dokja fighting the zombie version of Namwoon, Myungo picks up Sangha and crosses the bridge successfully. Dokja's foolishness and selflessness entertained the constellations and gifted him coins. As Dokja was already hopeless, he suddenly activated a new attribute called Bookmark. This attribute lets him copy a skill that he has an understanding of. Dokja used Namwoon's Grimdark Awakening with the knife he stole from Namwoon. Dokja was exhausted from fighting, but was waiting for Joonghyuk, the real protagonist. Joonghyuk grabbed Dokja's collar and was hanging at the edge of the bridge. Joonghyuk asked Dokja some questions that he must answer truthfully. With every question Joonghyuk asks, he punishes Dokja, but thankfully, Dokja has good stamina. Dokja that they were able to survive the train by terminating insects. Suddenly, Dokja activated his Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint skill, which helped him know what Joonghyuk was thinking. For Joonghyuk, it seems as if he knows this isn't supposed to happen. It's like the future has changed. Joonghyuk was suspicious of Dokja being calm, despite having a new reality. Joonghyuk used his The Eye of the Sage skill to read the person's skill and attributes. But without expectation, Dokja has another skill called the Fourth Wall that blocks the Eye of the Sage. With 2 minutes left, Dokja further explains his use for Joonghyuk in the future by mentioning that Joonghyuk will have difficulty clearing out scenario 46 without a companion. Dokja told Joonghyuk that he knows the future, Joonghyuk doesn't. Joonghyuk used his lie detection skill, but Dokja's word was verified as the truth. Joonghyuk assumes that Dokja was one of the prophets next to Anna Croft in Korea. Since Joonghyuk is a regressor, the future he knows is limited over several times they have repeated their lives. With Dokja's knowledge as a TWSA, he is a great advantage for Joonghyuk. 40 seconds left, and they have no choice but to cross the bridge. After passing, Dokja was again tested by Joonghyuk by baiting the ichthyosaur, again to see whether he'll let Dokja go. Before Joonghyuk let go of Dokja, Dokja told him that he should be treating and cooperating with him equally. Joonghyuk then let go of Dokja and believed that he was the prophet. Dokja was swallowed by the ichthyosaur and pleased a few constellations. Dokja was later visited by the Dokebi. The Dokebi was proceeding for checkout, but Dokja pointed out that the penalty for the scenario wasn't death, but instead was 3 question marks. He negotiated with the Dokebi to pay with coins as a penalty. The Dokebi agreed if Dokja was willing to sacrifice all of his coins. Of course, Dokja didn't agree. Dokja provoked the Dokebi to kill him instead, but it seems the Dokebi can't because Dokja has drawn a crowd from the Dokebi's stream channel. The Dokebi was about to get mad when Dokja said his name, low grade, Dokebi Byung. Byung was surprised because a mere human like Dokja knew his name. Dokja suggested turning off the channel for a bit so they could talk, to which Bihyung agreed. Bihyung asked why Dokja knew about the star stream system, a channel where the Dokkaebi hosts the humans as storytellers. Dokja then encouraged Dokkaebi Bihyung to contract with him to make Bihyung the Dokkaebi king. Bihyung's eyes sparkled at the thought, but he was wary about Dokja. For Bihyung, something isn't right about Dokja ever since Dokja refuses to take any sponsorship from the constellations. Bihyung refused to sponsor Dokja, but Dokja didn't ask Bihyung to sponsor him. Dokja had no intention of power. Rather, he wanted to work with Bihyung's channel. Dokja explained that there are two groups of constellations watching Bihyung's channel. The first group is watching for entertainment, and the second is watching to sponsor an incarnation. Dokja's plan is to entertain the subscribers, while also showcasing interesting incarnations. Some constellations leave the channel after sponsoring an incarnation. That's why Dokja didn't choose any. Dokja then pressured Bihyung to open the channel because the constellations that were waiting. This is to pressure Bihyung and get him to make the contract with Dokja. But before Bihyung can accept the offer, Dokja needs to pay him the 5,100 coins, but Dokja won't because a hidden scenario occurred as expected by Dokja. He told the Bihyung to open the channel because it was about to start. As Bihyung explained to the constellation about turning off the channel, Dokja was browsing the Dokkaebi shop. Dokja searched for unique items, but bought the stone hog's horn and hammer seahorse's mucus. The hidden scenario has started, and the ichthyosaur was secreting acids in its body. Chapter 14. As the ichthyosaur was secreting acids, Dokja used the hog's horn to hang out in the side of the belly of the monster, which sucked up the life in every minute that passed. Dokja used the hammer seahorse's mucus as a protective layer from burning on the monster's acid. The Dokkaebi Bihyung showed up after Dokja completed the scenario after 4 days. Dokja stabbed his way to the ichthyosaur's nucleus and sold it to Bihyung, without asking anything in return but a broken faith. Bihyung showed Dokja the written contract he made, but Bihyung missed out on the important part of the contract, the ratio. Bihyung negotiated that the profit would be 50-50, and he also won't charge Dokja to use the channel usage. But Dokja wasn't easy. Dokja knows about the commission the Dokkaebi has been receiving during the stream. When a constellation gifts the incarnation without a supporting constellation, the commission that the Dokkaebi receives is heft. Dokja negotiated that he would take all the coins, which angered Bihyung. It's all or nothing. Dokja then pressured Bihyung into thinking that the constellations had been complaining. As they spoke, so Bihyung needed to make the decision quick. Not only that, Dokja asked Bihyung for 5,000 coins for the contract fee. The real game begins. In the area where the second scenario is, it is hard for a normal person to walk around. But for someone like Dokja, it's not hard to adopt. Dokja bought an Ellen monkey's lungs that looks like a flower gem. It neutralizes the poison you're breathing for 20 minutes. Dokja used it as he scavenged an abandoned convenience store for food till he saw a woman wearing a mask and asking for help. Dokja took the woman in his back and ran off towards a subway station. Most stations are closed, but the woman said, "Exit 4 is open." There, Dokja and the woman were greeted by a gang of men who refused to let them in because they were already overcrowded. As soon as Dokja and the woman are inside, Dokja offers the flower gem to the woman so it will neutralize the poison. A gang leader walked in front to threaten Dokja, but one member recognized the woman. The woman, named Huiwon, was part of the minor group sent out to look for food, but one man assaulted her and left her to die. They then noticed that Dokja had brought bags of food, so the gang leader, Cheolsu, threatened Dokja to hand him the food. But Dokja isn't the type who backs down from a fight. A bounty hunt to eliminate the grunt was a given. Scenario from the constellations to Dokja. Dokja then landed a punch to Cheolsu, which impressed the constellations. A few minutes passed, and Dokja beat half of the group. As Dokja finished the scenario given to him by the constellations, he didn't fully kill Cheolsu because, according to the original novel, Cheolsu should have been killed by Joonghyuk. Dokja asked the other gang members to lead him to the others. As they arrived at where the people were, Sanga was relieved to see Dokja and ran up to him. Gilyong gave Dokja a hug, and now the squad was complete, except for Myongo and Joonghyuk. Sanga informed Dokja that Joonghyuk had left the station just yesterday. Dokja knows exactly where Joonghyuk is going and what will happen to him. Dokja was about to ask where Myongo was, but Myongo then showed up while calling Dokja the worst and downright evil. But Inho Cheon calmed him and introduced himself to Dokja. Inho Cheon is the leader of the people and has men working under him. Dokja expected a fight, but was surprised to be complimented as the savior of Cheolsu's group. There are a total of 87 people taking shelter in the Jumho station. The people are divided into two groups. The major group consists of men under Inho, and the minor group consists of people who only wish to live. The major group manages food distribution, and they're all running low. People have been assigned to scavenge food led by the major group, bringing a few minor people to be left behind to die like Huiwon. Inho approached Dokja again to recruit him to be part of the major group, but Dokja refused. Inho was angered that even Yeonsong was worried for Dokja's safety. Inho left them, and Dokja suggested that the squad should have dinner time. However, the other people in the station were hungry and accused Dokja of monopolizing the food. This commotion was made by none other than Inho Cheon, using his insight skill. Inho torments Dokja to choose between being a hero and sharing the food or being the villain after monopolizing the food. As the crowd went berserk, Inho interrupted and calmed the people that Dokja would be working alongside them to scavenge food. But Dokja has other plans. Dokja will share the food, but not for free. Dokja will sell the food for 50 coins each. Murmurs filled the station with wary people feeling helpless. Dokja gave his companions a discount of 10 coins per food. Huiwon, on the other hand, agrees and accepts Dokja's terms, unlike Dokja's companions. Huiwon Jong has the crouching figure attribute that helps the person evolve drastically up to legendary status. Huiwon's demon-slaying skill might contribute to the crouching figure and turn her into an indiscriminate murderer. Huiwon told the squad to get a hold of themselves because Dokja risked his life retrieving the food. The squad then understood and paid for their food respectively. Even Gilyong paid 20 coins because he had taken chocolate earlier. This gesture from Gilyong caught the attention of a few constellations. Since Huiwon knows the doings of the major group, she explains to them that the major group has been monopolizing the food and dragging out the minor group just to be slaughtered, just like what happened to her that morning. Morning came and all the food was sold out. Dokja explained that the major group bought it all, not leaving even one food for Dokja to eat. An announcement from Inho was made, a declaration that the food would be limited to 3 biscuits per person. Since the food is still low, they are encouraging people to get out and scavenge food so they can eat. According to Inho, Dokja teaches him a valuable lesson and sells it for 200 coins per food. This makes the people turn against Dokja, with Inho's insight skill, for coming up with such a thing in the first place. Huiwon was infuriated by the new monopolizing technique that the major group came up with. Huiwon was losing trust in Dokja because of his carelessness, but Sanga and the others still trusted him fully. Dokja went to a railroad beside the station, but Huiwon followed him and told him that he had come out of there alive. Huiwon saw an elderly woman and a woman going inside the major group's camp to volunteer to scavenge. This angered Huiwon, and she wanted to stop them, but Dokja ceased her because it wouldn't be of any use. Dokja looked at his phone, waiting for the dokebi to show up, and it did. But the dokebi wasn't Bihyung, but another dokebi, because Bihyung is currently being disciplined. The dokebi in charge talks as if he is shy, but he is as cruel as Bihyung, and takes away the food for the people to look for a way to complete the scenario. While the people, including Inho, were panicking, Dokja felt relieved to experience the game just like TWSA. To survive, the people are required to pay survival fees. They need to move and find where the scenario will be activated. Inho made an emergency announcement to the people as their leader. Given their situation, they need more people for the search party, and those who won't participate won't be given their share of the food. Dokja is getting a hint that Inho is suspicious of him. Huiwon also asked Dokja how he knew that this would happen. Dokja made an excuse that he had a suspicion that the dokebi would make them suffer more. However, it didn't happen in the original novel, but he is determined to complete the scenario. Hyun-sung asked Dokja if joining the search party would be a safe choice, but Dokja told them it was better to stay underground. Hyun-sung is worried about the food, but Dokja assures them they should find a new food source and go monster hunting. Dokja and his companion, including Hoiwon, followed the rails. Inho saw them, but it seems that Inho is relieved that Dokja is staying away from their group. But Inho gave away Myongo to Dokja's squad. Hyosung is wary of Myongo, but Dokja assures him that he's not a threat. Hoiwon is worried that they might face danger ahead of the rails, but Dokja asks Gilyung to show them the skills Gilyung has. Gilyung has the interspecies communication skill that helps him communicate with different species. Gilyung talked to the cockroach nearby and informed the squad that it was safe for another 100 steps. They see a black wall, but the moment Hyun-sung touches it, a sub-scenario occurs titled Hunting for Food, and can only be cleared after they cook and eat the monsters they killed. Behind the wall revealed dead subterranean ground rats. Dokja assumes that Joonghyuk killed the pack. They took out the bones of the dead ground rats and made their weapons as if they went back to the Stone Age. Since the group successfully terminated the ground rats, they still can't eat them. The squad was suspicious of Dokja for knowing a lot about their situation. But before Dokja could answer, Myongo screamed. Myongo was dragged by a ground rat, and Sanga tried to save him, only for them to get dragged underneath the hole. Dokja needs to save Myongo and Sanga. Dokja only took Gilyong and asked the others to stay for a while. Dokja needed Gilyong's interspecies communication skills to lead them to the ground rat's lair. On the way there, Gilyong asks if Dokja is a god or the protagonist because of his knowledge of this world. Dokja was unsure what to tell Gilyong, but explained to him that Dokja knows the attitude of the ground rats. Gilyong is still a child, but is living this new reality well despite not having his parents. Gilyong was admired by Dokja. They arrived at the lair, and a new sub-scenario was updated. Myongo and Sanga were tied up by veins, surrounded by ground rats. Myongo was arguing with Sanga, blaming her for everything that had happened to him. It is quite dumb for Myongo to blame Sanga for rejecting his offer to let him drive her home. Dokja had enough of listening to their argument and threw his weapon to the wall. The wall then cracks, and the Warden of the Dark reveals itself. The insects around them all exploded, which damaged Gilyong mentally. Dokja rushed to free Myongo and Sanga before fighting them. Dokja wasn't just there to save Myongo and Sanga, but also to collect the treasures collected by ground rats. The warden spoke a different language, but Sanga managed to understand what it was saying and translated it. This is due to her skill in interpretation. Sanga translated it as to be a mother, because the warden impregnates other species to host their offspring, and it chose Myongo. A tentacle was thrust into Myongo's mouth, but Dokja cut it and dealt damage to the warden. Dokja blocks the warden's attack with his bone sword. But it doesn't last long. Dokja had no choice but to dodge his attack and called out the Dokebi, Biryu, who had been secretly watching. Dokja asked for the ordered item, Broken Faith, that he asked for from Bihyung. Biryu wouldn't budge at first, but given the situation of Dokja, the constellations are irritated by Biryu. Biryu gave him the Broken Faith sword with no choice, but it was too worn out and broken. But Dokja has more in his pocket. With the skills he purchased from Bihyung after the Ichthyosaur, he used the skill White Star Weapon Aura. The magic reacted well with the Broken Faith sword and completed the broken part. Now, Dokja is using the Blade of Faith. Another problem is that Dokja doesn't have combat sense or blade proficiency, so he uses his skill Bookmark to copy Hyun-sung's weapon proficiency and use the knowledge as a reader to know where the warden will attack. With all these skills, Dokja managed to defeat the warden. After completing the sub-scenario, Biryu was impressed with Dokja's progress, even in the early scenarios. Biryu asked if Dokja wanted to finish off and kill the warden completely to receive 7,000 coins. But Dokja refuses for a reason. Out of nowhere, Myongo stabbed the warden, killed him completely, and earned 8,000 coins for doing the impossible. Myongo felt proud of himself, not knowing that terminating the warden would anger the Demon King and curse him until he died. This is why Dokja refuses to finish off the warden despite knowing he'll earn lots of coins. Dokja and the others collected the treasures that contained a bracelet and a shield. It wasn't that fancy, but among the treasures is the mana brazier that can be used to cook the ground rat meat and clear off the current sub-scenario. They cooked off the raw ground rat meat and enjoyed themselves with proper food for days. Sangha was impressed by how knowledgeable Dokja was about this stuff and assumed that it was because Dokja reads a lot of fantasy novels. Sangha then keeps on looking at the treasure chest. Dokja asked why, to which Sangha replied that there was something in the treasure chest and they should keep it. It may seem simple, but the treasure chest is the real treasure. When you put low-grade items in the treasure chest called a black box, it will come out as a high-grade or even greater. It is new to Dokja, but he still gives it a go by putting the core of the Warden and the Broken Faith. Biryu the Dokaibi was shocked because what they were doing may result in something unexpected. To be sure, Biryu shut down the stream so the constellations could not see. Biryu did it because any item that gave you a higher grade item in return for a lower grade item could pose a threat to the balance of the scenario. It is considered controversial by Starstream management. When they opened the box again, the once broken Faith sword became the Unbreakable Faith. It is a constellation artifact belonging to the hero Kai Zenix. As they were about to exit the lair, Dokja asked Gilyong to use his interspecies communication skill. But there were no insects around, but Gilyong still tried to use his skill. Dokja stopped Gilyong from using that skill, but it was too late, and he had already called out a monarch species insect from above ground that shook the ground below. Dokja asked Gilyong to not use his skill unless he said so, which Gilyong obliged. Sangha then told them that she had a similar skill as Gilyong. Sangha tied a thread into something when she was kidnapped. They used it to go back up to the rails. Dokja is curious about Sangha's supporting constellation, but he knows that Sangha's life is at cost if she reveals her character profile. Dokja was curious about it and secretly used his character profile skill to learn more about Sangha. However, the system said it is currently collecting information for the target character, which is new for Dokja. Suddenly, Byung, the real Dokebi host, returned after being away for a while. They finally met up with Huiwon and Hyunsong at the rails and gave them food to recover. Byung and Dokja proceed to communicate using Dokebi communication. Only Dokja can hear what Byung is saying and vice versa. However, this communication is a violation for the Dokebi to use this skill to communicate with an incarnation. Dokja asked Byung why he was recalled by the management, but Byung won't directly say it was because of Dokja. Byung was impressed that Dokja managed to find the random item box. It was a remnant of Byung's embarrassing and greedy past. 20 minutes remain before the survival fee will be collected. This panicked people even more. Dokja was then greeted by Inho. Inho then mentioned that Dokja got the most coins out of all the people in the station. Inho's words spread quickly around people, causing them to crowd over to Dokja, asking for 100 coins. This was again Inho's plan to see if Dokja would play the hero or the villain. Of course, Dokja refuses to help the people. Inho broke into laughter and convinced the people that Dokja scammed them first by letting them pay for the food. The crowd then asked Dokja for a refund. Still, Dokja refused, and Inho's men were about to attack and kill him. Before they could even lay a finger at him, Dokja sliced the men's arms off, threatening people to blame him for the situation. Dokja explained to the people that he was nothing to be blamed for. In fact, it is Inho who is to blame. By eliminating the people from the minor group every time, a scavenging party or search party is deployed. Inho earns a lot of coins by eliminating others, which he uses to increase his stats and become strong. With 7 minutes left, people realized the truth and turned into a murderer. As Dokja defended himself with the others, Huiwon finished Inho's men on her own to seek revenge. With that, Huiwon's crouching figure was activated and the Judge of Evil blossomed within her. The Judge of Evil is the most powerful of all the 3 judges. This attribute makes Huiwon the powerful companion Dokja currently has. Huiwon managed to finish off Inho's gang, including Inho. This excites the constellation even more. After last night's incident, most survivors left the Gyumho station. Dokja and his companions are also on their way to their next destination. Huiwon is their recruit, while Myungo runs off without a trace. While walking, Huiwon punched Dokja's arm to give him her share of coins. However, Dokja doesn't really need it because he got most of the coins from Dokaebi Byung due to their contract. Dokja used his coins to increase his stats, especially his mana. The next shelter zone is the Chunmuro Station. Dokja and his companions have been fighting ground rats and are feeling exhausted. Dokja then asked the group to rest first at Dongguk University, to which the group agreed. As the group took care of their personal matters, Dokja was on his way above ground to look for the statue of the great monk Samyong. Dokja prayed to the statue that surprised Bihyong and the monk constellation. But then, suddenly, Dokja cut the statue in half, which surprised Bihyong badly. Bihyong was scared that the statue Dokja had just destroyed might sue his channel, but Dokja only did it to obtain the skill of the great monk and break the seal. Dokja then returned to the group and gave Huiwan the robe of the great monk and Sangha the praying bracelet of the great monk. Bihyung was still anxious about his channel being at stake. The sub-scenario is for them to escape the illusory prison. It will depict your greatest trauma in life and mess with your mental stability. The illusory prison started out more quickly than Dokja expected. It started to mess with their head almost immediately. Fortunately, Dokja activated the fourth wall skill, which made him immune to the effects of the illusory prison. Sangha too was spared the haunting effects due to the great monk's praying bracelet. But the others were gravely affected, especially Huiwan. Dokja used the Dispel Evil skill to dismantle the illusory prison. Dokja was nearly stabbed by Huiwan unintentionally because Huiwan's demon-slaying skill was activated. But thankfully, Dokja neutralized her as they escaped the illusory prison. But it didn't stop there. Specters came, but Dokja defeated them and collected the Spectre Spirit Stone that can be obtained from the remains of specters. A hooded girl arrived to ask who they were. It turns out to be Jihye Lee, the Taepung girl's high school girl. Dokja knows her well too because in the original novel, Jihye Lee was also one of the main characters of TWSA. Jihye Lee has the supporting constellation of the god of naval war. This is why Joonghyuk, the protagonist, chose her as his companion for upcoming battles in the sea. Jihye Lee took Dokja's group and accompanied them to Chungmuro Station. Dokja and his group arrived at Chungmuro Station. They were greeted by the drunk Landlord Coalition. Landlord Coalition runs Chungmuro Station and uses it as a living. The station has green zones, which the Landlord Coalition called the Room. As Jihye Lee was about to leave, Dokja asked if Joonghyuk was in the station, but Jihye was wary about Dokja threatening his master. Dokja told Jihye Lee that he was a companion to Joonghyuk and would know about Dokja when Jihye Lee mentions him. Dokja has a message for Joonghyuk, so Jihye leaves Dokja and his group to her friend. The boy then tells Dokja how he met Joonghyuk and became his follower. Dokja listens to him lazily, as if he's not trying to hide how boring it is. Meanwhile, Yeonsong took notes about the station lifestyle. Most of it is run by landlords, even the comfort rooms. Dokja was confused as to why Joonghyuk let this happen to the common people at the station. The group then noticed people gathering by the bathroom. Dokja already knows that one of the 10 evils is by the bathroom. Gilyong, not knowing what lies ahead, dashed and trespassed the landlord's green room. Gilyong was threatened to pay 500 coins just for trespassing. Dokja came up to them to save Gilyong by looking for Pildu Gong and paying him himself. Pildu heard the commotion and was interested in what Dokja had to offer. Dokja, on the other hand, is not sure whether to start a fight or make a deal with him. However, Pildu didn't take the bait at first until Dokja offered that he could provide Pildu an intel about Joonghyuk. Pildu was tempted, but he used his skill Calculate Profit to specifically know what he would lose when he accepted such offers. Pildu rejects the offer and lets Dokja pay him 1,000 coins for Gilyong and himself. It was too expensive for Dokja to pay, but he was trapped, and Pildu's turrets fired at him. Thankfully, Yeonsong was there to cover Dokja. Dokja then told Pildu that fighting him wouldn't be a wise decision because they could kill him right when Pildu was sitting, especially when a close companion was on his way right now, Joonghyuk. Dokja knew that Joonghyuk would never acknowledge him as a companion, and for sure, the two were going to slash each other's necks. Dokja doesn't mind fighting his idol, but Joonghyuk's current stats are no joke. Anyway, the two made their way towards Dokja's gang, and that's where Joonghyuk's gaze fell upon Huiwan. Dokja was worried that he was about to go rampage on Huiwan, but he couldn't do much about it because it would make him suspicious that he could read his mind. Dokja changed the attention by asking why Joonghyuk was letting Pildu and his gang alone. Joonghyuk then said that he would know if he was a real prophet, but Dokja's counter is not every prophet knows everything. Anyway, he made sure to note to Dokja that he needs Pildu alive for the upcoming scenario. Dokja wanted to know more about his intention, but Joonghyuk refused to explain further, which made Dokja's blood boil that he was close to punching him. Of course, that didn't happen, and Joonghyuk left. 1 hour and 30 minutes remained before the third scenario, and Dokja was pondering about the scenario already. He recalled that it would last a week, and knew that Joonghyuk would get something he wanted during that time. Dokja can't let him have his way, calling Joonghyuk a beach. Huiwon interrupted his train of thought, and that's when they converse about the unfairness of Pildu's rent and all. Being the wielder of Time of Judgment, Huiwon was angered. However, it wasn't fully activated because morality differs for every constellation or human. But there's a way to defeat Pildu, and to do this, they plan on luring him out of his militarized zone. However, it's not an easy task because Pildu has everything he needs in his safe zone. But first, they need to prioritize looking for a safe zone soon, especially when the third scenario is starting. And just like that, the Dokkaibi appeared, announcing the third scenario, which was to occupy a green zone in the station and survive the monsters that would emerge every midnight for 7 days. Seeing that there aren't many green zones around, people went berserk into killing just to inhabit the green zones. Most of them could only house one person, so there were lots of bloodshed out of desperation to live. Dokja told his gang to split up and look for green zones, but he knew damn well that there won't be any much left. 30. As everyone ran out to look for it, Dokja had a chance to look at his phone and read about what was about to happen next. While everyone was panicking, he was just sitting on a bench and reading. That's when Baehyung notified him that he should be doing something, or the constellation would get bored watching him stare at a blank screen. That's when he realizes that Baehyung, or even the highest constellation, can't see the contents of his screen. Therefore, none of them knows that he got a copy of the whole thing right on his phone. It was a great advantage, so too, he decided to stir something up. He found a lone guy fighting for his green zone, but before he could approach him, Jihee came up and pointed out how laid back Dokja was. The same goes for her though, but unlike him, she already has a green zone that nobody dares to take, or they would see death before the scenario would start. As for Dokja, he doesn't have a room and doesn't need one to survive, which surprises Jihee because how strong is this dude to say that? However, they were interrupted when Joonghyuk told Jihee to return to their room and left without much to say. A few minutes later, the gang returned with no hope for a green room because they were asked for 2,000 coins per night. They refused to give that big amount of money, so Dokja told them they had two options. One is to kill the 5 groups in the green zone and take over, while the second option would be something risky that one of them might die. Of course, Huiwon refuses to kill other people, but Gilyong has no problem doing it. Crazy kid. Anyway, the majority wins, and everyone chooses the second option. The scenario was about to start, and as planned, Hyunsung, Sangha, and Huiwon were preparing themselves to head towards the spawn point. Prior to that, Dokja explained that right before the scenario started, he showed them that they should run toward the wall to the left, where a green zone would appear. They put full trust in Dokja and went into the plan without hesitation. And just like that, they weren't disappointed because there really was a secret green zone in that wall. There are a few hidden green zones around, and they can only be activated once the scenario has started. Dokja and Gilyong were the ones left without a room, and they got their hands busy fighting off the monsters that had already caught up. It was getting tiring fighting that Dokja considered taking that spot from an NPC or whatever. However, the Dokkaibi was heartless enough to suddenly set up a penalty and erase the poor guy's green zone. Because of that, he died. And Dokja no longer has a last resort green zone. After a while of fighting, Gilyong told Dokja to leave him and look for another green zone to save himself. Besides, the kid thinks that Dokja would do well in that world if he didn't have to help. Dokja knew that, but it was his genuine will to help them because he once read a novel where the protagonist did that, and his life was miserable. He can't let Gilyong die, so he takes him and uses his bookmark to activate Delusion Demon. Finally, he got a sight of the other hidden green zone, but the moment he got there, He saw Joonghyuk chilling by it. This prick refused to leave the zone because he got tired. Of course he wasn't. He just wanted to bring more stress upon Dokja. There wasn't much time left, so both decided to at least take the child to the green zone and leave Dokja to fight for his life, till the scenario ended. In a split second, he heard Joonghyuk's thought saying, "I told you you would die." But this dude is unhinged enough to cheat death, just like how he cheated his way into surviving that world. Chapter 31. That's it for our recap. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more anime, manga, and manhwa recaps. Also, let us know in the comments what other titles you want us to recap. See you next time here on Anigo.